And welcome back to episode 105 of the Weekly Tech Wrap with me, Jay.
And me, Carl.
So let's hope tonight's recording goes well. Hopefully,
Fingers crossed.
what we uploaded last week managed to get itself out from the podcast oven to the airwaves. I'm confident it did, despite some technical hitches which were beyond our control. But this week, I think we've killed all the gremlins, and we should be good to go.
Yeah, definitely.
So last week's show was a full-on. Well, I want to think of it as a kind of breach compliance, you name it, wasn't it? Stories last week.
There was a lot of naughtiness.
There was a lot of naughtiness, and some of it continues. The Optus breach, particular, is still rumbling on, isn't it? That's
it is
not been a good place to be at the moment if you're over in Australia. Well, this week, as promised, we are bringing you the latest updates on the Nvidia 40 series launch and the news that's come out around the 4090, as well as improvements on the ray tracing and DLSS. I'm not even going to try and explain what that stands for right now, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We're also going to talk about Meta. Of course, we love a bit of Meta on this show.
We do.
We're going to talk about the UK competition, but it's not who you think it is. And Sci5, who we spoke about last week, randomly. Now we've got a story this week about RISC-V, and we've got a bit of the rumour mill has returned. It makes its well-deserved return this week as well. But before we get into the Nvidia stuff, I thought it was a good idea, as mentioned, to talk about some of the new Apple kit that we've picked up in the last couple of weeks. So, Carl, do you want to kick us off and tell us about your lovely, shiny iPhone 14 Pro Max?
I did, yes. I bought a Pro Max in deep purple. I must admit, it's very, very nice. It's one of those ones that kind of changes colour depending on the light. Sometimes it can look almost grey at the angle, and sometimes a deep purple. So
deep purple.
I'm loving it. I'm not sure deep purple is the name for it, but it's what Apple's gone with. I do like the colour. Obviously, I've come from a 12 Pro Max, haven't I? So
you have
cameras, nice upgrade, especially the macro mode. But obviously, that actually came out on the 13 Pro and not the 14. So that's last year's tech I missed. I had a chance to play with action mode earlier. I chased the kids around the garden with a camera, and it did come out silky smooth.
Is that the cinematic mode?
No, that's the one where it does the image stabilization. So if you're running around and it's all bumpy and that lot, you should get a nice silky smooth video.
Okay. Is that that's right. That's the bit without the gimbal, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Seemed to work very, very well. Impressed. I have had a quick play of action mode while I was in the pub. I just wanted to not action mode. Sorry. What was the one where you can change the
cinematic.
Focus on the cinematic? Yeah, I did it. It seemed to very smoothly change the focus from one person to the other. Yeah, happy with that. Dynamic Island is a bit of a disappointment for me at the moment. It looked very, very good in the Apple event. And I definitely think it's got promise. It just needs more developers to actually use it. I mean, because I think the way I use my phone at the moment, I'm not really seeing it at all. When I listen to music, which is one of those obvious ones, I generally listen to music in the car. So my phone's in the tray and I'm using CarPlay. So I don't see it then.
Well, when you showed me it the other day, and I couldn't seem to. You like you say, didn't seem to be there, did it? It wasn't as prominent as I think the video showed it to be when they launched it. I think, as you say, more apps need to support it going forward.
Definitely. Battery life definitely seems to be better than my 12. But mind you, my 12's 2 years old, so the battery's going to suffer. And from what I'm reading online at the moment, it seems to be a bit of a downgrade from the Pro Max, or the 13 Pro Max. Whether that's iOS 16 issues or something else, I don't know.
Interesting. I have to say, I mean, as I'm still rocking the Pro Max, battery life has become something of an issue. It does last the whole day, but it is certainly dropping. My battery, I think, when we looked before, was around 91% health at the minute after 2 years, which I suppose isn't too bad given it, isn't it?
Exactly.
But this morning I've been out today. I took it off charge at 6:15 this morning, and I had to put it back on charge at 6 o'clock this evening. Otherwise, I wasn't going to get any use out of it this evening, as I needed to take some pictures of my kids for things. So I had to put it back on charge. But that all being said, I guess you're right. Battery life improvement with the 14 is something that I'm looking forward to seeing as well. So that's good to hear.
Definitely. I think to sum it up, it's an iPhone. I could probably have done an.
Is it?
Yeah, it's an iPhone. It's not revolutionary. It's evolutionary. I could have probably stuck with the 12 Pro Max. short of the battery life problems, for another year. There's nothing stand out as an upgrade, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Would you agree though that skipping the year was a good idea?
Yeah, I think definitely, because I definitely appreciate all the new camera bits. I use my camera a lot. I know, the macro and the cinematic mode came on the 13 Pro. I think
Yeah.
they're improved on the 14, but I'd never seen them in use before at all. They're pretty good. My wife's got a 13 Pro Max. She didn't even know it had a macro mode until I showed her the other day, and now she's using it for everything. She's like, "Oh, I did not realize that was there." So yeah, lots of macro photos.
I do think though skipping the year is probably it's probably the right thing to have done. My worry
Mm.
though is next year with the 15 we could see more of an evolutionary jump in design,
Yeah,
especially if the rumors around moving to USB-C are there, which will be a frustration if they do. But I'm looking forward to the 14, and given the
yeah.
positive things you've been saying about it, especially the color. I'll be honest with you, the color looks
Do
good.
like the color. Though if they had it in product red.
If only. We're talking product red. So that's probably a good segue there, Carl. Nice one. So I have in front of me here a Watch Series 8 product red, 45mm, GPS only, not cellular as well. I'll mention why that in a moment. Which I have to say is an incremental upgrade on the Series 6 that I had before. I would say that you would probably see a bigger jump from your watch than
I
I.
was
I
looking at
sort of
my 4 the other day. I caught it in the light. There are so many scratches around the edges on it.
I'll say my Series 6 was relatively scratched, not to seriously couldn't see the screen, but there was a couple of good scratches on it,
Mm.
setting it up after 2 years of use. But the 45mm here has got a noticeably bigger screen resolution, I think, from the 6. Whether that's more
Yeah.
around perception as opposed to actual screen, it certainly feels it. Battery life again is 36 hours, so it's again not massively different to the Series 7, obviously, which, let's be honest, it's all the same system on the chip anyway, isn't it,
It is. It
underneath?
is. Yeah.
But some of the things like the software improvements are mainly the key features here with WatchOS 9, so that's where we're seeing the improvements really. The temperature tracking is not something that I personally can use at the moment
No.
because it's around menstrual cycles, which not something I'm able to demonstrate or test.
No.
But in discussions with other people who may find that useful, there was some interest there around how that works, and I had a couple of questions actually around the security of it.
Yeah.
Given everything around Wade versus Roe in the US and some applications wasn't it, people were telling civil liberties groups were telling women in US to delete, weren't they,
Oh
those
yeah.
apps. However, Apple of course have made it very clear that the data is encrypted on your phone and your watch and doesn't go anywhere, so that's an interesting point. All being all, it looks nice. I've had a few comments today at work around it. Was that the new watch? And the product red
Yeah.
styling, it really does stand out. It's a really nice beautiful metallic red around the casing, and the crown as well looks nice. Comes with the red sports band, not the loop. But I've put on my own previous Nike sort of what
Oh
they
yeah.
call it, the Velcro one,
Yes. I know
that
what you
goes with
mean.
it, which probably doesn't look quite the same. It's a green loop, so red and green. But I'll leave you to that, your own thoughts on that. But as watch. But what I should say is, and Carl, I know you know this already.
Yeah.
I did have the Ultra for 3 days.
You did. I got
So
to see it.
you
We
did
went
get to
go
see the Ultra.
karting on a Saturday, didn't we?
We
And
did. We went
you
go
bought it with
karting.
us.
I tested it. Didn't get to test the crash detection, thankfully, but we did. We did indeed take it go karting. So yeah. So on Friday, I made a bit of an impulse purchase around the Watch Ultra. Uh,
Yeah.
I went to my local Apple store. According to the Apple website, they didn't have any in stock, so I didn't expect to have one. But I got a chance to try one on at the table,
Yeah.
and I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't as heavy as it looked. Also, it wasn't as big actually as I expected it to be. It did look like a nice watch, and I don't know what your thoughts were on seeing it, but it wasn't. It was big, but it wasn't sort of clown watch, was it? Huge.
No, no. I mean, I like the look of it. It's too big for me. I think I have quite small wrists, and even the 44 is. I have lady wrists, and even the 44 is big enough. So I think if they did a smaller version, the 44, 45 mil, whatever it is, I'd be happy to buy that one. But 49 definitely too big for me.
Yes, that's a 49. Yeah, it's a 49 mil screen. Though the usable space apparently is 45 mil, according to some reviews. But I'm not entirely sure how that works out. I did think it was a much bigger usable space. The design of it's great. The chassis. I had it with the
Yeah.
Alpine Loop to use the weekend. Now you're asking yourself, why did you trade it in? Well,
Yep.
two reasons. One, it was quite an expensive piece of kit, and I was kind of thought perhaps maybe it was overkill for needed. Secondly, I stepped back and I thought, do I need everything on this? Because it's super bright, awesome, great. Well, I can still see my watch in daylight. The dive computer, amazing bit of kit, really amazing, but it seems a bit wasted when I'm in the bath. And then the other
Dive,
element,
dive.
yeah, a bit like that one. And then the other elements was the siren. And the other morning, I managed to set this. I think it was Sunday morning. I managed to set the siren off in bed whilst trying to snooze the alarm on the watch. That may have been the final straw for it. But all in all, it was a great bit of kit. I just felt that I personally wasn't doing it justice.
You're
Um,
not the right
I-
demographic.
it didn't feel. Yeah, I felt I was doing it a disservice to the watch. That being said, I think in the future I may consider maybe a Gen 2 version of it.
Yeah.
And it would be, a brilliant bit of kit. But yeah, fantastic. The Series 8, on the other hand, does exactly everything I want and does 10. And of course, the other purchase I've got as well is the AirPods Pro 2,
Yes.
which, to be honest, I think are just incremental versions over that of the Series 1 Pros. Now, what I will say is, and I think I mentioned this before, I wouldn't have bought them if I hadn't have lost the case for
No,
Series
no,
1.
no. They were a
Um,
forced purchase.
they were a forced purchase, but sound quality is there. They do seem to have a better fit as well in the ears. I'm not
Okay.
entirely sure. There was some improvements around the um, the tips, and I'm thinking there was some reviews around that, and it does feel like a better fit. I will also say the spatial audio. There are definitely some improvements there, but I feel that could be software more than anything else.
Mm.
The other thing I say is battery life is slightly improved, again, marginally over the pros that I had previously, but again, I think with the AirPods, these aren't like with the phone. This is not evolution. It's just incremental. It's just an
Yeah.
update.
Did you get
Um,
to try the transparency mode, obviously, on your trips
yes,
today?
so I did. I had transparency mode on today, and I don't know whether it's because I couldn't test, but I didn't get any. I didn't get the kind of the auto dampening. The bit where if it hears a loud
Okay.
noise.
Yeah.
So I need to try that again because I typically have mine on noise cancelling as opposed to
Yeah.
transparency. So it is something I need to think about. But all in all, they are good. And I had a colleague as well who had also bought them, and he's come from the standard AirPods.
Okay.
And
So big
and
upgrade
was
for him then.
for him, he was saying they were really, really impressed. He was super impressed by them. The sound quality, the spatial audio, all those bits was for him were great improvements over the AirPods standard, if you will.
Yeah. If
So
only they
yeah,
came in more
definitely.
colours.
Well, if only. Well, of course, the other thing we should mention, I think we have mentioned before, is you can track the case. That is
Hey!
probably the most important part.
Which is why you had to buy new ones.
Yeah, though interestingly, my colleague hasn't got a newer iPhone, so he hasn't got the U1 chip in his iPhone,
Oh, wow. Okay.
so he can't find the case.
Ah, well, yeah, time to buy a new phone.
Yeah, exactly what he said.
I could recommend the 14 Pro. I
That's
have a 12
exactly
Pro
what
Max
you.
if you'd like to buy it.
Yeah. So he was saying the same. So he's like, "Yeah, I've got to have an update on my phone." So, which I thought was quite amusing, given
An
given
expensive month all
yeah,
round.
all round for it. But no, all good. But as we improve, go through the improvements here, we pick up new things. We'll come back and let you know how they are as well. So
Yeah.
we'll keep you updated. Right then, let's kick off the main story of the show. So Carl, kick us off then with the big story of the week, which is the Nvidia RTX 4090, or AKA the
Oh,
big
yeah.
boy.
The big boy. So yeah, they did release. They released a 4090 and two 4080s we'll get to in a minute. So it's based on their new Ada Lovelace architecture, isn't it? So, and these are some big upgrades. Even just looking at core counts, big brute force updates from the previous generation. I mean, if you take the top of the previous generation, which is what, the 3090 Ti, compared to the 4090, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a new Ti or Titan or whatever coming soon. another 6,000 cores they've added in over the 3090.
Nuts, absolutely nuts.
What base clock's been ramped up by another 700 megahertz. Same for the boost. Memory bus is the same 24 gig of RAM. GDDR6X, isn't it? And same 21 gig a second of bandwidth. But surprisingly, same wattage, they say. I will have to
Well,
wait for some reviews, but they're still saying 450 watts, the same as the 3090 Ti. Yeah. But yeah, so just from a pure brute force, it's got loads more cores, and those cores are a lot quicker. And obviously, they're newer cores with more oomph anyway. But then this is where it gets slightly weird. So the 4090 is kind of what we expected. They then announced two 4080s, not a 4080 Ti and a 4080, two 4080s.
Which is kind of what was alluded to the other week, wasn't it? That there was
Yeah.
there didn't appear to be any differentiation in the naming.
No, one's a 16 gig version and one's a 12 gig, but it's more than just 16 and 12 gig that makes it a difference. So if you take the 16 gig, it's got 9,728 cores. If you take the 12 gig version of the same 4080, you only get 7,680 cores.
That's quite a step down.
It is. So we're losing what? Nearly 2,000 cores. The boost clock is what, 0.10 gigahertz faster, 2.61 versus 251. On the 12 gig has got the faster boost clock. And then it gets really, really weird. Okay, so if you start looking at memory bus bandwidth, so usually it takes the bandwidth, the memory bus. So your 4090 has got the 384-bit bus standard, exactly the same as the 3090 Ti. Okay, if you look at the 16 gig 4080, they've dropped it to a 256-bit bus.
Yeah.
But that's only the same as a 3070, because the 3080 got the 384-bit bus. So they've dropped the bits of the bus down if you're comparing 30 to 40. And if you jump down to the 12 gig version, they've dropped it all the way down to a 192-bit bus. The same as a
like
3060.
a budget version then, really, isn't it?
But it's not budget when you talk price. This is
no. But when you look at the
30, yeah. Yeah, the budget one.
When you're looking
the
at spec, yeah.
When you look at spec, that's just weird. It's a budget version, but it's still $900.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure why they've done it beyond cannibalizing the market for the standard 4080.
Yeah, why not just call that a 4070?
Yeah, what exactly? Well, that's what I was just going to say. Why not call that 4070 and step then what would have been the 4070 down to the 4060, and drop it off? Because ultimately you're going to cannibalize any market for the 4080 if people are going to say, well, it's more of a affordable card. But
yeah,
what happens then in the future if they bring out a Ti version? Then where's that going to sit?
Yeah, so what the 4080 Ti 12 gig? Where does that sit compared to the 4080 normal 16 gig?
Yeah, and you mentioned there about the memory speeds as well. That also is weird. I don't understand how the memory speeds are different across them.
Or the bits, yeah, the bus width.
Yeah.
I don't know. What I think has probably happened is, no one's going to know other than Nvidia, but we're so used to paying a premium now after the whole COVID supply chain shortages, Ethereum mining. They're like, well, the market's willing to buy them at this price, so maybe we just charge them more for less.
I don't think that's going to work for a long time. I think, given the crypto crash, I think that's a sales play that will backfire.
Yeah, and it just seems a bit last minute because everything we were seeing before had very different numbers, and they weren't actually. So I say the leaks were spot on for things like the 4090 and the 4080 16 gig. There was no 4080 12 gig. I reckon this is a last minute change to try and capitalize on people paying more.
I think you're right.
Yeah. They've got the flood of the market now, haven't they? With people, all the miners flooding the market, second-hand market, the price is dropping. They've got excess stock of the 3000 series. So why not make those cheaper? And that's your bottom half, and only those three come out for now. There's the top end of the price.
Yeah, I do think it's possible that could be where they're aiming at, and it's interesting. I mean, just on a side note, obviously Intel Intel released pricing for the A770 today, didn't they?
They
Um,
did.
so obviously that's not competing with these guys whatsoever.
No.
But I mean,
But
farther down the
AMD have
line,
got theirs around the corner, haven't they? I think it's, I want to say end of October, start of November,
possibly. I
the
think
release
it's
of
in
the
that.
RDNA 3. So we might see some stuff change from Nvidia depending on what AMD release.
Well, yeah, because I think Intel's gonna take the bargain end of the market now because that A770, which is, I think, is around a 3060 mark, isn't it? I think from what we talked
Yeah.
about before, is in the $300 range,
Yeah.
$330. So if you're looking for budget, that could be where people are buying. And if you want top end, well, you're right. AMD here could come in and kind of really
They
knock
could do.
Nvidia off the top here, given that the 4090, $1,600. I mean, that's a lot of
And that's
money.
that's the US. Obviously, we're looking at UK price, and we've got tax on that. And people outside of the US, like the iPhone, are paying a premium on this at the moment.
Well,
So it's
given
about
also,
£2,000.
yeah, I was just going to say, given the fact that the pound is practically worthless at the minute. I mean, you know, we've
Yeah.
almost, I think we're about to reach dollar parity at this rate, but
Oh no! So we obviously, we've got the 4090 at $1,600, the 4080 16 gig at $1,200, and the 12 gig version at $900. So they are some expensive cards. They're not what I hoped. I thought they were going to bring these out at the same kind of price, and they brought the 3000 series out,
yeah.
which would have been amazing.
So where does this leave us then with the 4090 then? The 40 series improvements then. So what are we seeing then in terms of performance improvements? I mean, obviously now we know what the architectures are.
Yeah.
What I mean, obviously, Nvidia have given us some. Well, I say they've given us their view, haven't they, on performance increases?
They have, but they're all very shrouded behind their new tech. So they have released, these new 4000 series have got new ray tracing cores in them. So they started off by saying you're going to get a 2 to 3 times increase in ray tracing performance, and they've done this by introducing some new tech called shader execution reordering, or SER. And basically, this kind of reschedules work on the fly. Apparently, given this 2 to 3 speed up of ray tracing,
Right.
they're claiming this is as important for GPUs as out of order execution was for CPUs. So big claims there.
Yeah,
Big claims. So yeah, but there's obviously this is a firmware or a software thing. There's more new hardware. So obviously we've got these improved RT cores. They're apparently offering 200 teraflops of performance. These cores,
God,
two times the ray triangle. Sorry, I'm gonna get this right. Ray triangle intersection throughput, whatever that is. It is. There's also 2 new hardware units in these RT cores. So there's one called a new opacity micromap engine. Basically apparently speeds up ray tracing of alpha test geometry by a factor of 2 times. Again, no idea what alpha test geometry is, so this is above my head. And then there's a new micromesh engine, which again increases geometry richness without the BBH build and storage costs. This is all gibberish to me, but it's
just buzzword bingo.
This was the consumer announcement they were spieling this one off on. And finally, they've chucked the 4th gen Tensor core in there. I understand this one. This accelerates AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
I know this one. Yeah, I know that one. And apparently, those will do 1,400 teraflops each.
My God, I mean, those numbers are just. You think 10 years ago, anybody said that kind of speed and performance, you just wouldn't have believed it.
In a consumer PC. Well, a very high-end consumer PC.
I mean, but it's still, money aside, you still could go out and buy one. What I'm saying, it's not super
off the shelf in Currys.
Yeah, it's not an Intel. It's not Intel supercomputer that's hidden away in some national laboratory doing crunching weather patterns or whatever. This is a graphics card for playing AAA games.
Yeah.
Which kind of, I guess, is which is the other point around, as you say, the ray tracing tech is around that the DLSS, which is deep learning super sampling technology. I knew I'd knock it out of the park with that one.
Exactly.
Which is their other kind of frame rate improvements, isn't it? The tech, which again, I still think this is black magic, the DLSS stuff, because the claims that they're making with the RTX on versus off
Yeah.
isn't just a jump in frame rates. It's almost like a 100%
Well,
increase, isn't it?
it is. So they announced what DLSS version 3. Okay. We're coming on version 2, but they've announced version 3. I think it's exclusive. Well, the most benefit you'll get from the new cards. I'm not sure if it's exclusive to the new. It wasn't entirely clear, but they are promising 4 times the frame rate increase with the new 4000 series.
I think it is
On top,
exclusive to the
yeah,
4000, the 4090s or the 4080s. I think from what
yeah.
I've read.
So that 4x frame rate increase is on top of the 2 to 3 times increase using the new ray tracing capabilities. And they did show a demo, didn't they, of a
They did.
Cyberpunk,
Well,
a
of all the
beast of
games
a game. Oh, I
of
know.
all the games to show, I mean, it's Cyberpunk, which I think is pretty much the crisis of its day, isn't it?
It
In terms
is.
of performance.
But yeah, they had it running at 4K max settings with ray tracing on, but no DLSS. And even the mighty 4090 could only manage 22 frames per second.
Yeah.
So that's throwing pure grunt at it. Now, switch it on DLS3 and boom, 85 frames a second.
Which is just to me mind-boggling. It's like
Yeah.
you're telling me that this high-end card struggles to play this game at native 4K,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden we flick a switch and it's pumping it out at close to 90 frames a second. It's like, what? It, it,
Well,
it's
yeah,
like some software black magic, isn't it? It's the
it
only way I
is.
could kind of think.
And they gave some reasons for that because version 2 of the DLSS uses AI to generate pixels that aren't there. Okay. DLS3 will use the AI to create whole new frames, not just parts of frames, the entire new frames.
How does
There was a whole bit on it, but yeah, I was sitting there reading it. I was like, I can't put this in the podcast because I barely understand this one.
It is nuts. I mean, they've got a mini site on the
They
Nvidia
have, yeah.
webpage. There's a mini site that they call it the performance multiplier powered by AI. And there's a whole, like you say, there's videos there that show the improvements in it, and then they've got some lovely classic graphs that show you with DLSS and then on and off. And I think that out of all the games, and you may have seen this, I'm sure, but if anybody hasn't, it shows a graph. You've got Microsoft Flight Simulator there. You've got Unreal Engine demos, F1, and right at the bottom you've got Portal.
But Portal
Now,
with RTX, it's a special build with ray tracing put on, isn't it?
it is, but we still are not. We are talking about a game which came out in 2007.
Yeah.
And they're saying that with DLSS on, you get a 550% gain on performance. I mean, of all it's a bit like saying, we can play Doom on this. It plays it at 3 million frames a second. It's awesome.
But I mean, to me, that is with ray tracing on though, because ray tracing is still ridiculously demanding. So I remember when the was it 2000 series were the first one to introduce. It was RTX, so it brought out ray tracing, didn't it? And you enabled that on games. And even if they were only using ray tracing for the puddles, it tanked your performance. I can't remember which game it had it in. It was one of the FPS ones, wasn't it?
It did. I mean, and I had
Call of Duty. I want to say, yeah.
I think it was Call of Duty. I had a look at this earlier, and they had a little video on the site of Formula 1 22, 4K. With RT on, but DLSS off, and it was 42 frames a second, and it was all right. It looked nice. And then on the right hand side, you got RT on, DLSS on, which is RTX basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's 70, 80 coming down a straight. There must be about 25 cars through a chicane, and it's doing 96 frames a second.
Wow.
And I know it's Nvidia, and I know but there's no stutter, there's no lag, which is like when I play.
Yeah.
It was impressive. But more, I think the one that really caught me was Flight Sim, because Flight Sim, they did it, and with the lighting effects of the dynamic weather, glinting off the body of the plane, just the shadows. I mean, it just looks phenomenal. I really, you can't say anything else. It's just the only way to describe it.
But they only imagined what was it, a 200% increase on Flight Sim? It was the least improvement. But Flight Sim is a beast of a game.
It's a grunt of it, yeah.
Can we get DLS3 inside VR, and then we can get it on DCS?
Well, DCS, the game that doesn't support any of those things, because
it doesn't support anything. The engine's so old in it.
Basically, you need a single core CPU that can run at 5 gigahertz. Excuse me.
You'll be fine with the new AMD processors you're going to buy, won't you?
It was. It will be absolutely fine with that. Absolutely fine. But closing out then the Nvidia stories tonight then is probably a
Ooh,
slightly negative one then for one of their hardware partners, EVGA, isn't it? Who,
it is.
well, I heard about this the other week, and when it was a bit of a rumor, but it turns out then that EVGA, who make cards, so like MSI and Gigabyte, you buy the cards.
Say well, probably one of Nvidia's biggest partners, if
I
not
was
the
going to say,
biggest
so
board partner.
yes, so it turns out then that they are not going to be making any more cards for Nvidia, and they've decided
No,
to break the partnership.
yep, not just the 4000 series. They won't be making any more cards, and Nvidia cards account for 80% of their revenue. So
Well,
that's a drastic decision to be making.
yeah, and their partnership goes back 23 years to the I think what was it, the Reva
TNT2.
TNT2, yeah, which is
Yeah. But
it
I think they've just had enough of Nvidia. I mean, they're citing basically a complete lack of respect from Nvidia, not just to them, but to ball partners in general. And they're even citing things like, one, it's incredibly thin margins. They apparently make 300% more profit selling a power supply than an Nvidia graphics card.
I'm not surprised by that, are you? Let's be
Yeah,
honest,
not a problem. They're also saying that they're never consulted on new product announcements and briefings beforehand. Not featured at events. It's all about Nvidia now. They don't have their partners on stage.
Well, they never do they? They just show the reference
They
cards.
do. We'll come to reference cards in a minute, but they're not. They're not even informed of price changes. Apparently, in fact, I watched the interview. They're not even told about pricing of new products until they're announced to the
Whoa.
public. So these guys are sitting there designing cards and creating bill of materials, not knowing the price they'll be able to buy it at.
How do
So
you run a
apparently,
business like that?
no, apparently some high end cards they even make a loss on.
God.
Yeah. And then finally to get off, Nvidia obviously with the 2000 series, they
Yeah,
introduced the Founders Edition, didn't they? Which are
that's
reference
right. Yep.
cards. They now
Yes.
sell and undercut all their partners.
Which puzzles the hell out of me. But I suppose it's a bit like Google with the Pixel lineup, isn't it? You've got the reference design, that meets all of the specification, and you can sell. And they Google do, don't they? They sell the Pixel phones cheaper than say Samsung do with the high end. I think, but you're getting all of the
But
same.
Samsung can still sell a lower end one
Oh
based
yeah, no,
on
but
the
I think the point being is
chips.
that
Yeah.
as an example of another
Yeah.
reference design, but yeah, I mean, I remember when Nvidia launched them, it was weird because it was almost like, well, why would you then want to have an EVGA? Okay, because they overclock it, or they've taken the dies that
Yeah.
that are running faster and things like that. Or they do different memory or cooling, don't they, on them? But ultimately, there really wasn't much improvement, was there? I think in the long run, and especially if you're
No.
looking at it from a pricing point.
Definitely from a pricing point. The Founders Editions were always the cheapest. But then Nvidia don't have to buy the chips from someone else, do they? They're their own chips.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah,
Not
so
at all.
I don't know what Nvidia's plan is here, but yeah, and we're going to miss EVJ, but somebody else will step in to fill that gap.
Well, what was the thing that also Jensen Hung or their Twitter account mentioned this Project Beyond, wasn't it? This kind of strange new uh, project that they're saying is something related to the 40 series, but they haven't given any further details. There's a couple of Twitter posts saying Project Beyond and a lovely little video of like light
Don't
speeding and
know.
stuff. Um, I'm not entirely sure what that alludes to, but unless it's perhaps just the naming of or the I guess the concept around the 40 series. Um, but yeah, you're right. They've still got who have they got? They've still got MSI. They've still got Gigabyte. Who else makes cards for them? Asus, doesn't it? Zotac and the other people, isn't it?
Oh
So
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
plenty.
yeah,
They've got plenty of hardware partners that I guess can pick up the slack here. But yeah, it's a shame to see EVJ leave.
yeah,
Given they make good hardware, but
yeah.
certainly if you're running a business, you've got to think about the margins and the bottom line, haven't you?
Exactly. And the weird thing is though, they're not going to start selling Intel or AMD cards. Apparently, they're just out of the graphics card business.
Well, like I say, money, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, fair
So
enough.
we'll see what happens. They're gonna they said they're gonna concentrate on things like their power supplies and motherboards and other bits and pieces and upcoming projects we don't know about.
Excellent, excellent. Right then, so changing tack then, let's swing it the other way and talk about our good friends over at Meta or Facebook, whatever they're called this week then.
Dear, oh
So
dear.
we talked a little bit about last week, didn't we? About
We did. It kind of came out just before we went on air last
it
week,
did,
didn't it?
didn't it? And also we were talking about them acting their internal group, which basically does self-regulation. Well, if you've been, not keeping up with all of the latest updates on Meta around things, that you may be unaware that they got quite upset when Apple introduced new privacy rules back in 2021, which was in
Just a
iOS
tad.
15, wasn't it? Around the
It
ability
was.
to opt out of all tracking by third-party apps. And also that there were rumors that Meta lost it around or in the region of $10 billion of revenue during
Yeah.
the last year. So, given the fact that Meta's whole business model is around advertising, selling adverts, and generating the data from those adverts, this has probably caused a lot of upset in that business. And
Yes.
one of the things that they were looking to do was to see how they could circumvent the privacy controls, wasn't it? To allow them to track a user through opening apps in a browser, or code injection to change
Yeah.
external websites. Basically, allow you to track anything, including passwords, without any consent from the user at any point in this.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about it as well. Episode 100. It was a security researcher,
It
Felix
was, yeah.
Krause, wasn't he?
So
So yeah,
yes, that's right.
he basically found that the Facebook and Instagram, if you click a link, it opens it in an in-app browser, doesn't it? And as you mentioned, it was injecting that JavaScript code into third-party websites.
Terrible,
So they
terrible.
could do pretty much anything they want with that. But so yeah, obviously he caught them out, and now they have not one but two class action lawsuits in the US
Yeah,
filed
here's
against
one,
them.
here's
Yeah,
another.
exactly. From different people. And the suit basically accuses Meta of what do they say? Considering privacy risks, circumventing iOS user privacy choices, and intercepting, monitoring, and recording all activity in third-party websites viewed in the Facebook or Instagram browsers. This includes form entries and screenshots, granting Meta a secretive pipeline through its in-app browser to access P2 data, private health details, text entries, other sensitive confidential facts, seemingly without users even knowing their data collection is happening.
This could be a very costly case for Meta, given the fact that one of the legal teams, isn't it? I think Gerard Sharp,
Yep.
LLP, is quoted as saying that this is an important case and they're wanting to stop Meta getting away with on concealing ongoing privacy invasions. And they've also, haven't they, pointed to a previous fine that the FTC investigation which resulted in $5 billion. He said 15, $5 billion fine for Meta.
That was back in 2020,
Yeah, it was
wasn't it?
2019, but they're referencing that as previous misdeeds and continued, continued well,
Abuse, really?
abuse of it. That's the only way you can describe it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Abuse of privacy regulations and rules. And it says here, merely, what was it? The quoted as saying, merely using an app doesn't give the app company a license to look over your shoulder when you click on a link. Well, this is it. They shouldn't be allowed to monitor it
No, they
because
shouldn't do.
doing it.
Well, Meta obviously disagree with this.
Of course they do.
Their statement in typical fashion says, these allegations are without merit and will defend ourselves vigorously. We have carefully designed our in-app browser to respect users' privacy choices, including how data may be used for ads.
This sound that statement, right, sounds very similar to what we were talking about the weekend when we were talking about the was it OneCoin with the Dr. Ruja
Oh yeah,
Ignova, the crypto queen who is allegedly alleged to have stolen several $billion worth of money through a cryptocurrency scam. And their statement to every journalist is that OneCoin meets the full definition, the legal definition of a cryptocurrency. Basically the same way Meta say that we respect user privacy. It's like,
it's all rubbish.
Stop. You're just saying words there, But part of me is like, I'm not shocked.
No, I'm not shocked in the slightest. But
$10
when
million.
someone's going to step up and actually slap them hard on this one?
Yeah, $10 billion is a massive loss to revenue. And given that the whole business model of Facebook is advertising, isn't it? It's all around data usage. It's a data mining company.
Isn't there something saying about never put all your eggs in one basket?
Well, there is that, and it's just, the fact that you're never told about it, there's no information for users to be aware of it. There's no justification that Meta should be not telling you that you're going this way and that you'll be monetized. But as we have said on this show numerous times, if you're getting something for free, you are the product, because that is the only way that you'll be monetized, because Facebook's free for a reason.
Yeah, they
Because you're
need to make
telling
money
everybody everything
somehow.
about, yeah. But I think you're right. It's about time they got a slap, and it's about time that this could be a incredibly large fine. And given that this is affecting potentially millions of users, isn't it?
Yep.
We're looking at statutory damages according to the legal companies here, and they're saying that potentially what's it? There is an act, is that the Wiretap Act, and statutory damages of the CIPA could be up to $10,000 or $100 per day for each day of violation, which is a lot of money. It says the
Yeah.
court may assess other fines, isn't it? But it does say that the lawsuits have said that there is an easy way for Stop Meta collecting info. Basically, stop clicking on the links and allow you to copy them into your preferred browser of choice, isn't it? Rather than
Or
doing that.
just delete Facebook.
Yeah. Just delete Facebook. Yes, I 100% agree with you on
Well,
that.
they've apparently got 2.93 billion monthly active users.
That's down though, surely on what their high point was, though, isn't it?
That's I don't. Yeah, possibly that was as of August this year.
Okay. I think it has been higher, isn't it? I think Facebook at one point had higher than that. What was it daily users, wasn't it?
That's monthly. That was 2.9 billion monthly. But yeah.
All right. Okay. Interesting. I think it must have come down. I'm sure it must have come down, because I know they were talking when at one point they had like a third of the population, but
Yeah.
there's still a lot of people use Facebook. Given everything about it that I hate, you have to at least pat Zuckerberg on the back for a business model that
He
exploded.
has a thick skin.
Yeah, but so would you with that much money. So would you.
Yeah.
Okay, then. So,
All right.
sci-fi then. I can't believe
No,
that
it's not
we spoke about
sci-fi.
sci-fi.
It's not there. We're not there.
We're not there. What
We're
have we
not
missed?
there. You've missed the Ofcom.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Oh,
Do you know
yeah.
why? I've got my tabs in the wrong order. It's my fault. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Before we talk
All
about
right.
sci-fi, let's talk about Ofcom then. Not
Yeah.
our usual friends at the CMA, but Ofcom for a
No.
change.
No, exactly. So, yeah, Ofcom, again, a UK regulator. They've said that they're opening a study into the big free cloud providers, obviously, namely Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and their role in the UK's 15 billion cloud services marketplace. So this is part of a new effort to ensure that digital communication markets are working well for local people and businesses. But they're not finished there, though. It's not just those three they're looking at. They're also probing the messenger and smart device market. So looking at services like WhatsApp, Zoom, as well as smart speakers. What else are they looking at? Yeah.
But this is,
So
just to be clear, this is what they're calling a market study, though, isn't it? As opposed to an
it is.
investigation as
It's not
such.
an investigation. They're doing their due diligence potentially before they launch one, and it could be Ofcom themselves. They could hand it over to the CMA, or it could be go through Parliament for new laws to restrict
Regulations,
this
yeah.
regulations. Yeah. So yeah.
I think this, as I say, from what I read about this, understood it. You're right. I think it's a view on the market, how it works today, isn't it? How the digital service market works today.
Yep.
How will it develop in the future? And as you say, if the regulation needs to be brought in, what competition issues could there be or concerns? And I suppose also there are some of these areas is around maturity of these markets, isn't it? Because digital services, cloud services, is exploded over the last few years. We're seeing a massive increase in those services businesses. Smart messaging, smart speakers, I guess, is an interesting one. I suppose regulation there is a curious one. But yeah, it's a bit of a new area for a lot of governments, isn't it? And for them, regulation's key. But I suppose, dare I say it, tax monetization, how can they recoup something on them as well, isn't it?
We need some money at the moment in the UK.
Yeah, and also the oversight, I suppose, from a government perspective, isn't it, on what goes on these services and whether or not people are getting access to them. But I think it's good. It'd be interesting to see what the outcome of this paper will be. I'm sure it'll be published as an open paper. Given they're looking, you say, things like those smart speakers. I think they mentioned also connected TVs, that they called it. Because accessing traditional services around what would have once been terrestrial TV and radio content. So yeah, I think what we could see here is actually a really detailed view on digital life in the UK today. I think is probably a good way
Could
to
do,
look at
yeah.
it.
Yeah, because they
Um,
are looking at things like consumer
yeah,
behavior, as well as the things like I know they mentioned communication apps like WhatsApp, Facebook, Zoom, but they're looking at the effect that has on traditional calling and messaging, along with interoperability between these services.
that's right. And I think one of the things that the analysts that they're looking at this are saying that it's around also the public appetite, isn't it today? So people buy smart speakers, whether it's your Series, whether it's
Yeah,
your the other A word that comes from a certain other manufacturer, sorry, or
yeah. I had
the
to mute
or
her, so she's all
yeah,
right.
or Google or any of those other, so people, lots of people got them in their homes today, connected
Yeah,
services, as we just said, connected TVs. We've got the messaging apps, whether it be sorry, messaging as well, but not just the messaging apps, things like the Facebook portal, the
yeah.
Alexas that have got the Echo with the screens on, and
Oh yeah,
there's
yeah,
far more to it today than just internet connected TV. It's our households today are full of IoT. I have got a huge problem with everything being connected to the internet, if I'm honest with you. Um, my question to her usually is, do you need to plug that in?
yeah.
And there is a thing to that. And on a side of weird tangent, I can't explain who I spoke to and what I saw, but I was party to a conversation yesterday evening that talked around space and in the UK
Yeah.
from a military perspective, and the thoughts of a low-level EMP blast due to nuclear conflict, and how that basically would resort us back to the Stone Age, or in the terms of
Yeah.
military, we'd be back to World War II style um,
Get your
military
bayonets out.
content. Yeah, but from a personal and public perspective, it would be like you'd be heading into 1950s era of communication. So yeah, we do live in a time where the internet rules everything and everything is connected to the internet. So yeah, I think Ofcom, it'd be interesting to see what they come up with here and what their findings are for the markets themselves.
Yeah,
Competition, yeah, well we know what the competition's like. I think
yeah.
that's a
And
given there.
interoperability.
That's probably a
Yeah.
bigger question, definitely, definitely. Right. So as I got it round the wrong way, I'll let you
So
pick up
far.
sci-fi then.
Right, so yeah, we did mention this last week, and I
we
happened to see a
did, we
news
did.
story came up, which was quite interesting, so I thought I'd add it in. But recently, Google and Sci5, so they gave an interesting talk at this year's AI Hardware Summit about how they've worked together on new chips for AI machine learning workloads in Google's data centers. So they're basically combining Sci5's, they call their Intelligence X280 chip, yeah, which is a bunch of RISC cores in a chip. And they combine this with Google's MXUs, again, which are a collection of those tensor processing units for AI acceleration. Uh, yeah, so basically, the X280 now is sitting as a front end for these tensor processing units and feeding it workloads and optimizing it, but also adding extra bits and pieces in. So they've added things like vector maths units, so it can all be done on one chip. And you can build up these complicated systems for this processing without going anywhere else. So it was all very interesting, but I say it was just to see sci-fi pop up in the news again.
I thought it was timing was everything here with them.
Yeah, it was.
I thought clearly we must have had a premonition about what was coming here with sci-fi and risk.
Yeah.
But no, I got impressed. I have to be honest with you, I didn't realize they were as heavily used by Google in their data centers. It was something that was new to me in
No,
the
me
AI
too.
piece.
So they're kind of getting everywhere. But still, it's so So5 like ARM, they produce chip designs, but Risk Five itself is an open source. Anyone can go and design it. They don't have to pay for a license if you're going to design
No,
it
and
yourself.
getting somebody like Google to take it more mainstream, that
Yeah,
could lead to other hyperscalers probably looking to do it. I know that. I mean, AWS have got a big, there's a big project to
you
see
can
where
get
they can
ARM and
run
stuff there,
ARM
can't
as
you?
well. I think Azure are already starting to run some ARM hosts as well
Mm,
on Azure. So it is moving that way. So yeah,
yeah,
definitely, sci-fi are in a good position to do that. And given, as you say, the open nature of the risk
yeah,
five thing, there's more scope here for development than you have with a licensed product like ARM. But yeah, ARM's not
yeah.
going anywhere just yet. But I,
Of
I
course
would
not.
imagine
No.
I'd imagine it probably though does make a bit of a worry given that obviously they're looking to float. And I did see today that they have
Oh, yeah, they got a
hired
new.
CFO,
Who did they
haven't they?
hire? Yeah, who did he come from? I
Splunk.
did Splunk. That was it. Yeah,
Yeah, so they have picked up a new CFO called Jason Child, who recently was a senior VP and CFO at Splunk. He joined them in 2019. Prior to that, he's been a CFO at several other large companies as well. And the reason I think they've picked him up is that the CEO, Rene Haas, has said that he's quoted as saying that Child has extensive experience in financial management of public companies and IPO
Yeah,
execution. So yeah, there you
exactly.
go. There you go. Cool. Well, I think, Carl, it is time for the Tech Rant Rumor Mill, which has had a bit of a break for the last few weeks, hasn't it?
It
So
has. Well, we've been talking about the actual rumors that are real life, haven't we? So
we have,
yeah,
but back with increasing demand. The
yeah.
rumor mill is back this week, and we have got a rumor regarding then the October Apple event then that may or
Oh
may not
yeah.
happen then,
But that's it.
according
So,
to
so Gurman, isn't it?
Gurman.
He's
Yeah.
saying potentially there is no event because there isn't enough news in it to have an event. So they may just do a kind of news release. But I don't know. Looking over what he says is going to come, I think that's worthwhile of an event. Well, he's saying we're going to get what an 11-inch iPad Pro with M2, 12.9-inch iPad Pro with M2. And the new original iPad is going to be redesigned, isn't it?
Yeah.
He says we're getting a Mac Mini refresh with M2 or even potentially M2 Pro chips, and two new MacBook Pros, 14 and a 16-inch. Again, M2 Pro and M2 Max. I don't know, a lot of new hardware, but not a lot's changed. So yeah, maybe not an event then.
No, and I'd see to me though, I can't see Apple missing up a chance to talk about the Pro and the Max M2 chips, to talk about how much
Yeah,
faster they are than the last generation. And you're
yeah.
right, there's no hardware design changes in the
Well,
MacBook
other than
lineup.
new original iPad.
But yeah, the new original iPad, potentially a Mac Mini refresh again, but again, you could lump that together with the Pros and the M2 and the Pro chips.
Yeah,
But normally they'd want to shout about those Pro and Max chips. Potentially the new generation iPads, he says that are coming. Yeah, we're not going to see any redesigns on them because we know
no,
they get an M2. They've already got USB-C. They've already got the OLED Retina screens on them. So
yep.
again, you're right. There's nothing going to really change there. But I, I don't know. To me, it seems a bit odd. I can't. I can see them doing it, but not the full on 45. I think 45-minute,
Yeah.
short ones.
If there'd
And
been
don't
a
forget
Mac Pro there, 100% would have an event.
yeah, but that's like putting man on Mars. That's not going to happen
Don't know
anytime
when
soon.
that's coming.
The only thing I will say though is they haven't dropped OS Ventura yet, so that might brought it with it. But
Oh yeah, they might have that an event for that. Yeah.
though talking around software updates, and again, this isn't a rumor, but it's related. The fact that Stage Manager now works on non M1 powered iOS device iPads.
Well, it always did because it worked on the A14
I
iPad
know,
Air, didn't
but
it?
yeah,
But
but that's not what they said,
that's not what
was
they
it?
said. Yeah.
Talk about U-turn. So I mean, yeah. So the news out today is that Stage Manager now works on the previous generation, third and fourth generation iPad Pros. So that's the A12X and the A12Z
Yeah, from
chips, or
2018 and then forward, isn't it?
from
Yeah.
which includes the one I've got. The only thing it doesn't
Not the one
support
I've got.
is no.
Damn it.
The only thing it doesn't support is external Stage Manager with an external screen. So it doesn't
Yeah.
work on the non M1, which I kind of get because of the bus on it and the bandwidth probably.
Yeah.
But the fact that that's a U-turn, though, given I know you're right, you're saying it did work, but given the press and how they described it, that was not how it was described at all, was it? So,
No, it
you
was
know,
not.
but I don't know. I get what German's saying here. I just don't see them, given the fact of what they've got in the lineup. Why would they miss the opportunity to shout how fast those chips are in their classic, exponential curve PowerPoints?
True, but if they're going to have another big event in January, we've got a lot of big events all in one go.
Yeah, but don't forget, they won't want to lump together a bunch of iPads and
No.
MacBooks if they're dropping a AR, VR headset.
Yeah, that's true. The video crew and the CGI people are going to be busy.
Yeah. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, as the rumors develop there, we will give you the latest updates on it. But I am pleased to see the welcome return of the Tech Route Rumor Mill. So then, I think that's probably a good place to draw tonight's episode to a close. We'll be back next week, as always, for episode 106. And of course, please leave us a comment, a like, tell your friends about us, and you can find us, of course, on Twitter at Weekly Tech Rant, at techrant.online for all of our show notes information. And of course, wherever you get your podcast from, wherever you're listening to this now, tell your friends about it, share it. Of course, we reckon that's the only way for you to get more people listening. So a special shout out, of course, to our favorite listeners, the ones down under and over in the German market who've dropped me a line recently. Thank you for staying with us and subscribing. And I've been Jay.
I've been Carl. Have a good evening, all.